The next time you sit down for a delicious meal with generous portions of everything, think about this. We import about 90% of everything we eat. What if the cargo ships and planes stopped coming and our food supply from outside of Hawaii was cut off? Every day, the 6 million pounds of food we get from someplace else just didn't arrive. What could we do about it? This live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff from Hawaii News Now. At the International Conservation Conference a year ago, David Ige made several pledges for a sustainable Hawaii. Among them was one that commits the state to double our food production by 2020. He recognized Hawaii's vulnerability to disruptions in shipping, which brings in approximately 90% of our food supply. Acknowledging that we have a long way to go, he stated that protection of lands and water and support for our local farmers will be key to providing food security for our state. Since his declaration, what has been done to move us closer to the goal? How do we measure our progress? Tonight's guests include research and policy specialists in the fields of agriculture and a local farmer from Hawaii Island. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now to our guests. Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser is Deputy Director of the Hawaii State Department of Agriculture. She's the former president of Mikilua Poultry Farm in Waianae and a longtime Hawaii agriculture advocate. Dr. Kenneth Grace is Associate Dean for Research at the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, or CTAR, at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He's held this position since 2010. Brian Miyamoto is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Farm Bureau Federation, a grassroots nonprofit organization founded by Hawaii farmers and ranchers. And Michael Hodson is with Wow Farm. You'll explain later why you cut the name Wow. There's a family-owned and operated farm in Waimea on Hawaii Island, located on 10 acres of homestead land in Waimea. The farm grows a variety of vine-ripened tomatoes using no chemicals or pesticides. Let me start off with Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser from the Department of Agriculture. We throw around a lot of numbers about what local food production is. You wanted to explain a little bit about where we got this 10 to 15% figure on how much we're actually producing?
I think that it's based on two references. I think the 15%, and I think Brian and Dr. Grace might be familiar with this, is based on the Rocky Mountain Institute. In 2007, they did a report called the Island of Hawaii Whole System Project Phase 1 report. And in that report, they determined that we supply only 15% of our food. The 10% comes from a book written by Brian, I think it's pronounced Halwale, in 2004, and the title of the book was called Eat Here. And in his book, he identified that we only produce 10% of the food.
Well, Dr. Grace, what do you think of that figures? I mean, given that these figures are floating around, they don't seem to be particularly scientific. Do we have any idea really how much we're producing locally compared to how much we're importing?
Well, I guess the honest answer is not really. I mean, those numbers aren't totally unscientific. I mean, they were based on, they came from the sources Phyllis mentioned, but they were based on research to arrive at those numbers. You know, one thing that I think, though, Daryl, that's important to always remember is that they are consumption numbers. So, you know, we're saying that 90% of the food that's consumed in Hawaii is not grown in Hawaii. That doesn't mean that we could only produce 10%, however. So when we talk about producing more food, we also have to talk about people buying it and consuming it and wanting to do that. So I guess I'm just saying it's kind of a complicated figure. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the different food groups, it's vegetables, we're obviously producing more. Fruits, we're producing more that people are consuming. Well, fresh products.
Let me take a look at it. We do have a graphic that's based on some national research about Hawaii's fresh food production. And I guess this is an important distinction to make, that this is, when we talk about 90% of the food being shipped in, a lot of that is not fresh. That's frozen, prepared, and so on. So if you look at these graphics, 30% of fresh vegetables that we consume are grown here, fresh vegetables. 80% of fresh tomatoes are consumed here, and 100% of all watercress. So if we all ate watercress all the time, we would beat every goal. 38% of fresh fruits are grown here that we consume. 9.3% of protein, I realize that's a pretty broad category, and we'd have to talk about that. 50% of seafood, it says, is produced here. I find that kind of astounding. And 30% of fresh taro. And according to this graphic, we consume more than 300,000 pounds of fresh taro a year, but only produce about 1/3 locally. Brian Miyamoto from the Farm Bureau, do these figures make sense to you? Do you think this is a fair way of starting off this conversation about how much more we should be producing?
Yes, I think those are fairly accurate numbers. I'm looking at some of my notes, and I have those numbers. Also have 10% of the beef is local, and 20% of milk is produced here or consumed here locally. I do have 35%, and also the 30% the fresh fruits and fresh vegetables that you have. So yeah, once again, the 90% that we're using, or the 85-90% number that's been using, it's all foods consumed. You know, you've referenced packaged, processed, frozen food. So I think what the governor was looking at is, you know, his goal was 20% or doubling food production of the fresh products that we are producing here in Hawaii.
Michael Hudson, you run a farm on the Big Island. Tell us a little bit about that operation. And if someone came to you and said, oh, we want you to double what you're doing in the next 3 years, what would you say?
Wow.
That's the name of your farm, isn't it?
Correct.
First, where does WOW come from? Why did you name the farm that?
We started farming 12 years ago. I retired from the police department and just did it as stress release, and started growing more than I could consume, gave it all to my fellow homesteaders, and started going to the farmers market, the small farmers market in Waimea, and everybody who would eat our tomatoes would say, wow. And so when they started calling us Wow Farm, and it just stuck.
Do you feel like there's enough demand for your product that if you could grow more, people would buy it?
Yeah, I believe so. It's not so much the demand. I think it's the demand on the farmer. The time consumption, the intensive labor, that desire to do that type of work. I think that probably restrains a lot of people from expanding their farms. That definitely has restrained us.
You know, Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geiser from the Department of Agriculture, is the lack of farmers, I mean, what are our capabilities to expand quickly this industry?
Well, it's often said that you can't farm if you don't have water, you don't have land. But I guess through this conversation with the governor's goal, you know, we know that you need a workforce. And it's been frequently discussed among our circles, the challenges of an aging workforce. You know, the average farmer is, some people say 60 to 63. And so as we got further away from the plantations and the new generations are removed from agriculture and they get into other kind of professions, it's really hard to pass the farm down to the next third or fourth generation. For me, I was farming for almost 31 years. I got 2 degrees in ag, and my family has been farming for about 100 years. We started off as contract sugar labor. Then my one grandfather decided he's going to be an independent pineapple grower. So we went from Big Island to Maui, and then we ended up, after the Second World War, doing poultry on Oahu. And the reason why I think I made farming a career was I liked my boss, which was going to be my dad. We got along. And
well, that's rare right there.
And you know, even though I wasn't conscious of it, I started working when I was in the 4th grade, helping out. We were told to help because it's a family.
So what would you say has happened to that structure? I mean, one thing I'd like to bounce off Dr. Grace. Historically, Hawaii, I won't say made the choice, but Hawaii converted from sustainable agricultural model to basically export plantation.
Right.
And now we're trying to exit out of that and get back into more local production. How much of an impediment to our ability to be a local producer was the fact that historically we were just big plantations and export type agriculture?
Yeah, well, kind of a big impediment now, right? I mean, if you go back before plantations, you're going to get to again very local food production. You're going to have kind of limited diet in some cases, right? And that's part of the problem now. Things people want to eat or that we're used to eating maybe aren't as competitive locally in price. Some cases can't be grown locally. But yeah, that was a major shift to plantations. We've made big strides since then, actually. I mean, we've got, according to the census, we've got something like 7,000 small local, relatively small farms in this state, and that's an enormous number,
It does sound like a lot.
It's a huge number, and it reflects anything from somebody growing, maybe growing basil on, half an acre, to farms like Wow, and then to some that are larger, but larger here would not be large on the mainland.
Brian, with 7,000 farms, you'd think that we'd be producing a larger proportion of the food that we eat. Why is it still only
Scale.
Somewhere between 10 and 30%, depending on the commodity?
Well, Phyllis said scale, I agree, but farming's tough.
Yeah.
A lot of times farming is not their primary occupation.
Right.
Maybe counted as one of those 7,000, but they need another occupation to survive. Richard Haas said, if farmers can make money, the farmers will farm. He's no longer farming. I'd like to address the workforce issue. Absolutely, workforce, we need land. We need the availability of affordable water to be successful as farmers. And then one of the next challenges is always labor. And we've been discussing labor for a while, but it's what Phyllis is talking about, the entrepreneurs, the families or the children that are going to take over the farms, or a lot of these great programs that are out there that are producing the next generation of farmers, but we still need the workforce. We just had the state ag conference, and we did have a labor panel. It was a big panel. And you've had your larger guys, your MacNut guys, saying that they were short 30 bodies. So they lost a lot of their crop because they couldn't harvest it. And then you had a gentleman from Molokai on homestead land growing mangoes, and he needs 2 bodies. And they both have these workforce issues that we need to address if we're going to grow agriculture, which is one of the industries here in Hawaii, because it's so small right now that we do have an opportunity to grow. We do need to address the labor issue, the workforce issue.
Michael Hudson, with your farm, do you hire people to help you?
Yeah, we have 4 employees, mostly family. So we pay our family members. I think, dealing with this situation, we get land, we get water, we have everything that is here, but the ambition to farm, we lack. Colleges,
Hard work.
universities, Hawaii Community College, he said 1 out of 100 graduates actually get into the farming industry. So it's not education, if only 1% of them getting into it. But I think the UH's Go Farm Hawaii says their rate is at like 2%.
Well, and if you're working as a farmer or a worker on a farm, are you making enough money to get by in a highly expensive state?
If you live in a rural community, yeah. But if you're living in here in Honolulu, of course not. It's a different situation on where you're at. These 7,000 farmers, a lot of them are pig farmers, or they raising some chickens in the back, that kind of thing. You add them all up, that's more of a subsistence farm for their own family. So we really don't have 7,000 farms producing produce for Feed Hawaii.
The caller calls in to tell a story. He says caller was a farmer in the 70s and 80s, and during that time it was challenging to get dependable local labor, and most farmers had to import labor from Mexico. Today, local farmers are older, and younger local people do not want to do the hard labor that is required to do farm work. How can we be sustainable if we have no labor force? Is the Department of Agriculture active in this? I mean, is there things going on to address that issue? Or?
Well, you know, our department, we do out grants, and so we have supported the Go Farm program, but also the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, the State Department, has gotten funding from the legislature. You know, Representative Mark Nakashima is really feels passionate about getting the youth exposed to ag and mentoring and nurturing interest in ag sciences and future farmers of America. So we have, over the past 2 years, really been trying to get the Future Farmer of America organization in our public schools revitalized. And what it's shown is that if you give projects a little bit of money, then things do happen. And we've been trying to get through the Department of Labor, get science teachers interested in ag sciences, so they will want to become mentors.
Let me ask Brian Miyamoto from the Farm Federation. How much progress have we made in this? I mean, is this labor issue? I mean, is it really a reasonable expectation? And we talk about scale. So if it's a little tiny farm, one of 7,000 small farms, and a tractor or a piece of equipment costs X amount and that farm isn't capable of generating it, then you have a highly more labor-oriented kind of situation where people are out there with smaller tools. I mean, do we need to find ways to have bigger farms that are more scalable out, or I mean, are we going to rely on trying to generate enough bodies for these 7,000 farms?
Maybe a combination. I think one of the issues that we want to look at is technology, adopting more 21st century ag technology. What's the estimated number? 9 billion people in the year 2050. So we know we're going to need to produce more food. So we need to produce it with less resources, and we think ag technology can assist in that area. We're still going to need bodies. Certain crops, certain practices, you need bodies. So, what Phyllis referred to is the Ag Workforce Development Board, and again, just another program that's addressing the need for not just ag labor or workforce, but ag education, which is, to me, critical. This next generation, there's somewhat of a disconnect with agriculture. It's not around them as much as it was when I was growing up, when a lot of you were growing up. So we need, we want them to understand the importance of ag and appreciate ag, because they're the next generation of consumers, of farmers, and of policymakers. So, we really want to focus, and there's a lot of folks out there doing some good work as far as ag education. I think is really critical if we're going to try to achieve goals such as doubling our food production.
Dr. Grace, do you feel like, to ask the same question that I just asked, I mean, do things have to change at the farm level in order to make jobs more attractive, more efficient?
In some cases. I mean, I think there's a role for that small farmer too, that family farmer. There's some role for the subsistence farmer. Frankly, homeowner production of food is if your goal is to get more local food consumed, then that's also part of it. We have the Master Gardener program, for example, that's working with with residents, with homeowners on small garden plots. We worked with these folks here on the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations workforce development, and that's one program. We're also working with the College of Education at UH Manoa on the issue of we don't have that many ag education programs in the schools anymore. So we're trying to work with them to do just what Phyllis said, bring teachers in training, folks who want to be teachers, exposed to agriculture as a science.
Let's move on here to a couple of questions that we're getting about land, because assuming that we can generate enough farmers, people to do the work, what's the land situation? Mike Hudson, you mentioned you're on Hawaiian homeland.
Hawaiian homeland, yeah.
So your cost for land is pretty small compared to trying to buy a piece of land in the middle of.
Yeah, right. But the State Department of Ag has 200,000 acres of land available for state use for people who want to start farming. So I don't think that's we're at an advantage than everybody else.
Just two questions from viewers that I'd like to just emphasize for this discussion. Can't the lapsed sugar land be developed for sustainability? And two, how can we justify building houses over prime ag land and expecting to expand local food production? Both people writing, suggesting that land is a big issue. Brian Miyamoto, is land and availability of land remain a big issue? We've always heard it is, but
It is, and there are efforts out there. The legislature has funded the purchase of Galbraith land along with City and County, OHA, and also the Dole lands. And what state-owned land leases will allow is long-term leases for our farmers at affordable rates. You've got other landowners, Kamehameha Schools, I know A&B's in a transition, looking at their lands and trying to keep it in, or trying to diversify from sugar production, so they're doing some great work out there. Land is always an issue. Again, the cost of just doing business here in Hawaii is so high, and farmers make razor-thin margins. I think Mike can attest to that. It's a business. It is a business, and it's a tough business. Getting your hands in the soil is not something that everyone wants to do. So, there are efforts out there to secure land so that we can, again, grow agriculture. And from the Farm Bill standpoint, we absolutely support growing local food production, but we believe agriculture is much more than that. It's food, feed, fiber, fuel, and here in Hawaii, especially floriculture. So we support all agriculture. We want to see all agriculture grow, and we think a larger investment in agriculture from our consumers, really supporting it and really adopting that mantra of buying local. It matters. It really does matter. There's a study done, I think CTAR participated in that study in 2012 that demonstrated that by reducing our imports by 10%, I believe that's correct, right, Ken? Resulted in $300 million staying here in Hawaii, in our local economy, with our local families. So, just changing behaviors, I think that's what we talked about earlier, changing behaviors and buying local can really support this industry.
Dr. Grace, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I think Brian's exactly right. I mean, first with the land thing, land with appropriate infrastructure for ag is important. The farmers are going to be able to get to the land. Yeah. They need irrigation in many cases on the land.
They do need water.
And more they're needing packing sheds that meet the food safety regulations. So it's more complicated than just a piece of land. But there is land available. Mike's right. I mean, there is. Cost and qualifications for getting on the land are sometimes issues. But to get to Brian's point about the sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I think
what was your point?
The next question I think that you brought up that I was going to ask you is, agriculture isn't just fresh fruits and vegetables. It's all these other products that is important to have a healthy industry that makes a whole lots of different money in a lot of different ways. Are we overly focused on food as a goal? Is the question that I think that raises.
Well, yeah, I think actually food is a goal, and I think that's an appropriate goal. But yes, we need a thriving agricultural economy, and in order to accomplish that, we're going to need to continue our export products. Energy is a huge cost to everybody, including a very big cost in ag. So the industry or the energy piece of possible biofuels, for example, does become important. But I think it's fair to keep a focus on sustainable food systems in this state. We want to be able to survive well. And part of that is growing things locally and eating them locally. But we don't want to forget the other parts of it either. Now, to do that, though, I think the behavior, and sorry, I lost my train of thought before, but I've got it back now. The behavioral change piece that Brian mentioned is important because, as he said before, farmers need to make money in order to grow things. And so, they can't sell them, they won't grow them. People have different buying habits, and if we could replace certain exports, like avocado, for example. I think we grow the best avocados in the world here. But what do you see in the supermarkets? Largely Haas from the mainland.
Phyllis Kaiser from the Health Department. Ag Department, sorry. What is going on in terms of state policy, state action, in terms of making the land available and these kind of infrastructure things that they've been talking about, the irrigation, the warehouse capabilities, and those sorts of things? What are we doing about that?
Well, within our department, we do have agricultural parks, and we also have ag leases that are not part of agricultural parks. So we try and provide long-term leases at very affordable rates. And there's such a great demand for it. Among all our ag parks statewide, I think we only have 2 lots that are vacant. The other thing we do is we recognize that in order to support our farmers, small-scale startups, they need capital. So we have an ag loan program. And we're basically, the lender of last resort. In our program, you need 2 denials from other financial institutions before you can come to us.
I'm remembering something, and forgive me for bringing in a really controversial subject, but that a fairly substantial amount of the state ag lands are actually in seed crops as opposed to food crops. It has been one of the arguments. I mean, is the competition for that land, the available ag land, between, say, a big conglomerate seed company versus a person who wants to raise avocados, is that a factor in our ability to generate usable land for farmers?
Like, I don't see that in our program because
a tough question, right?
I think like in certain counties where they have very large tracts of land, large plots, with our Ag Development Corporation, then they have seed corn tenants. But we have ag parks and ag leases on Oahu and Waimanalo. On the Big Island, we have several ag parks, and those tenants are on 5 to 20 acre lots. They do, local fresh. They do floriculture, nursery. So we have a diverse clientele.
Okay, Michael, you mentioned how tough a question that was.
How the land is being used, we started off with the topic of the governor, pledging to double the increase of our production of our food, and so we went around the block and through education, and we got dismal proportions of people actually farming, in the farming field. Hard to get labor to come out and start farming because the pay is. The hotel industry pays greater. I mean, you can't afford a home on one farmer's wages. And, I've been to the ag conference and I've been around this long enough to realize that what people want is people want to farm themselves. They want to be able to control their time, control the ability to make as much money as they can make based on what they do, with that persistent, consistent type of activity that you need in farming. You don't just show up at work in farming. So if you're going to put your hard labor into farming, you want to farm it for yourself. You want to be able to make as much money as you can make if you're going to put that hard work. In our program, our greenhouse program, Farming for the Working Class, our final stage is a community ag park, 30 acres of about 300 different parcels that the community can actually farm on. And if on a ratio of people farming, if only 10% of the people decide that they want to go commercial farming, and we get 300 parcels that people are farming on, we just created 30 more farmers in our community. We need to get farmers, in order to increase this food production, and we ain't doing that. Issuing out 10-acre parcels is not going to create farmers. We got to create the farmer first, and then we can give them the land to farm.
Interesting idea. In fact, one of the questions that came in from a viewer: should the government encourage people to plant their own trees and gardens to supplement in the case of a food shortage, we'll talk more about food shortages and that later on, but I mean, is there enough being done to help people grow their own? There's been there was an example in Cunha where they thought there was going to be a golf course in their community, and then when the developers sold the land to a bunch of farmers, they were just freaked out. Like, I don't want to farm next to my house. I mean,
NIMBY.
but how much of it is there things government can do to encourage a better relationship between farms and residential, for example?
Yeah.
It seems that there's some cultural changes. Like, I noticed that there are younger people that are interested in gardening, and I mean, it's becoming there's more awareness of having school gardens, things like that.
Yes.
So I think that, after maybe 2 generations, now all of a sudden people want their children to learn to grow things.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what's going to help us.
Are we prepared for that?
Yeah.
Do we have community gardens, or do we have community smaller? When I talk about ag park, small parcels, parcels that maybe 2,000 square feet or something like that, where you can create a collaborative amongst the people in that community. If every community have a small little ag park that you have a parcel that you can farm on, I got this idea when my daughter was at UH along the Hawai by Iolani High School. There's that fenced-in area where the people living in apartments could go and farm, and they fenced in those 10 by 10 farms, and I was amazed how much production came out of that place.
It looks pretty dense. Let me throw out this. This is an interesting question that we're posing, and folks at home can answer this for themselves. This is a statement, and you could tell me if it's true or false, and then we can discuss about why it is. So the question is, tens of thousands of calves are raised on the big island of Hawaii and then loaded on barges and sent to the mainland. There they're fattened, slaughtered, shrink-wrapped, and shipped back across the Pacific to the islands.
Yeah,
True or false?
true.
Why is that? Would we be basically growing something for half its life, shipping it off and bringing it back? What's going on there? Dr. Grace?
Economics.
Pure economics. On the face of it, it does sound ridiculous, but it's pure economics, Daryl. It's simply cheaper to ship them to the mainland, fatten them up on a feedlot there, finish them on the feedlot rather, and slaughter on the mainland. We don't have a lot of slaughterhouse capacity here.
That's a
for meat
bottleneck.
Production.
The meat process.
That's a major problem.
Yeah, and our goal really is grass-fed beef production in this state. Gosh, I know our faculty have spent a lot of effort on that. We spend a lot of time promoting it as a buy local, buy grass-fed, but that's a little harder.
So if the impediment there is the lack of processing facilities like
That's
slaughterhouses.
one impediment,
It's
yes.
one impediment. Which is probably driven by the fact that people want to pay $4 a pound for meat instead of $8 or $9 a pound, right? Brian, I'm curious as to why is it that we don't have processing facilities even when there is demand for a product?
Well, I think we're trying to scale up. I mean, I think that's the effort. Our livestock industry has been declining for a number of years. Again, we throw in all these other issues. With the cattle issue, it is an economic issue, and once again, farming is first and foremost a business. You need to be profitable to stay in business. It's like any other business. Sometimes people forget that it is a business. So we're trying to scale up. We talked about all these issues, transportation costs. Our farmers, even though we're trying to go to grass-fed, but a lot of the infrastructure, we don't manufacture things here. So we have to import all the inputs for farming. So there's these costs that are incredible. I want to talk about the import replacement also, since we're on this topic that Ken talked about. First of all, the avocados. I heard from a distributor that avocados is the #1 fruit that we import. I thought that was kind of,
A lot of guacamole.
Yeah, a lot of guacamole. But we produce so much avocados here, so it's a question, but we'd like to see less imports and more local production, because not only will it help our farmers, our economy, all the stuff we talked about, but also reduce the importation of invasive species. The less we import, the less chances of these hitchhikers coming into Hawaii. And I'm not sure, what were the numbers, Phyllis? How many new invasive species per year? 20 or so. I mean, it's
About 27 new insects
about 20
every
new
year.
insects every year, because we're an island state and we have to import
They're
so much.
coming in on our imported produce.
Well, not just produce, on everything, things that we
Everything.
import.
Coming in with everything that
Non-food,
comes in.
Non-food,
cargo.
yeah. So I'm not suggesting it's just local produce, but if we produce more here, as far as food, that's
We don't have that danger. Yeah.
we reduce that.
That's a huge impact, in farming, and that's why we lose in Waimea. We lost 2/3 of our farmers over the last 25 years, because things are changing. The types of disease coming in, and types of pests are coming in.
Well, you bring up an interesting
Hard.
point about just the tropical environment, the tropical situation where none of these bugs get killed in the winter
Yeah.
over here, and the fungus and all this other stuff, right?
And everything that
Grace is
comes
it,
stays.
subtropical environment. I mean, it breeds it, right?
So does that environment just mean that there's just some products we just can't even imagine growing for local consumption? We're
Probably.
never going to be able to really.
Not just that. I mean, you can't compete with some of the larger commodities. We shouldn't consider growing rice in large scale here in Hawaii. We're not going to be able to compete with California, but that's why we're so diversified and looking at those products that we can grow here, that we can grow competitively.
And you're going to bring in chemicals, more things to kill these things, because
In order to
Yeah.
win in this environment, you need all
exactly the
this
season's not
artificial
killing them,
stuff.
so you're gonna have to get a way to kill them, and that makes your production next round less and less and less, and it's costly because of the shipping expense, bringing everything in.
So it sounds like what you're saying.
gotta make money.
It's a good idea to target particular products that can be done here, as opposed to
Yeah.
trying to beat the Goliath of the.
I think
strawberries or
our
whatever.
I think our focus is we need to focus more on giving the possibility for farmers to farm, because when I first started farming my tomatoes, CTAR program, so I grew my tomatoes in the ground. I just retired from the police department, so I growing my tomatoes in the ground. I wanted to do it organically, all natural, and I get told that you can't grow tomatoes in the ground, and organically. It's just impossible. Leaving the police department, and I said, where are you supposed to grow them?
Right.
And you got to do them hydroponically. I don't think God made it to be grown hydroponically, but just that attitude
So
that
you figured it
cannot.
out. But
Yeah.
You figured it out.
Yeah, that word you cannot. I think we can grow anything.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
a person has to have the ambition to grow it and figure it out. So you
know,
got to give them that opportunity.
And it can be more difficult in some cases.
Yeah, but you got to give them the opportunity.
We're not suggesting that they don't try to grow rice.
Yeah.
In fact, I know in Kauai they're actually got some rice trials up there, and grow whatever you can. We want the more that
There's a
the
niche
more you do,
market.
absolutely. I mean the better it's going to be for agriculture.
But we can't grow commodities.
But commodities, it's
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
It
we
won't
can
grow.
grow them.
Yeah.
We can't compete.
Yeah, we can't compete at that scale.
People, I believe most people want to buy fresh, local things.
Yeah.
But the price is important to a lot of people.
I want to do one quick question that it still came from the cattle thing, and that is about the environmental regulations. We have had this ratworm issue, and the dairy farm on Kauai that's basically been prevented from developing because of the environmental regulations and the people who don't want that there. Slaughterhouses are naturally hard to place because feedlots be very difficult when you have intense, agriculture involving cattle or dairy. It's an impediment to dairy farms because the manure, and so on. I mean, let me start with you, Brian. I mean, with the Farm Federation, is the Hawaii excessively regulatory compared to other places when it comes to farming?
Our farmers and ranchers are trying to follow all regulations out there. I think one of the challenges we have with what you brought up is encroachment. As population grows,
Excuse me,
bless
I'm
you.
sorry.
Our farms and ranch lands were located in rural areas, and now you've got more residential getting a little bit closer and closer. What people need to recognize is there are sounds and smells and activities involved with farming, and in statute there is a right to farm law, and people, they're clamoring for more local, grow local, buy local, support local, yet sometimes we're up against opposition for certain activities which do come with agricultural operations.
Yeah.
And then again, I did have another question that did come in about the rat lungworm disease. That gave a lot of local produce a bad name. People are afraid of local produce all of a sudden. How do you overcome something like that?
Oh,
That would be
I think
devastating.
it's such a, frankly, such a the possible impact if you're sick from it is such a scary thing that it's just a real scary disease to people, rightly so. But I think the negative impact on local produce was really wrong. This is a situation it's not new. It's been with us for 50 years?
On all islands.
Yeah, on all the islands, and it is manageable. You have to wash the produce.
the Department of Ag did a great job. Their commercials that they're flooding.
That was a very
flooding
good
airways.
promotional.
That they're actually helping us farmers.
Now that doesn't mean it's not serious.
But it's taking the fear away from the
Right.
community.
I think
Saying
it's,
it's
when it's
just
a-
what you got to do with it.
When it's food safety and if it's a foodborne illness, then everybody has to do their part because
Yeah.
the farmer can grow things to meet food safety protocols. But then if he goes to the store or the restaurant, they don't wash
Yeah, everybody got to do their
The
part.
entire distribution
Yeah.
chain.
the home.
You can leave the farm perfectly fine, perfectly safe, but along the chain there's opportunities. So again, it's educating the consumers, what we're doing as farmers on our farms, but also as a consumer, changing behaviors again. When you wash your produce, take a little bit more care. It is a serious disease.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, everyone out there has been doing what they can. Our farmers have been impacted by it. People just don't want to buy local, and we're saying continue to buy local. And we're trying to educate them on this disease, and it is, as Dr. Gray said, somewhat preventable.
Okay,
Again, changing behaviors.
We're heading into the next last 10 minutes or so. And we moved quite along quickly. Another graphic I'd like to read, another question that you guys will get to answer, but the audience could ponder as well. How long have we relied so heavily on shipping in the majority of our food supply? How long have we relied so heavily on shipping in the majority of our food supply? Since the 1990s? Is this a relatively new phenomenon? Since the 1970s? Or since the 1950s? And imagine this difference in our population from the 50s to today. Maybe. So how long have we relied so heavily on shipping? You guys want to guess?
I would say probably from the plantation days.
Since the 1950s.
I was going to say
Yeah,
the
I was-
50s.
Yeah, so this is not a new phenomenon, which means it's probably going to take a long time to turn it around.
Yeah.
And a couple questions about technology. Has anyone here investigated vertical farming models similar to Singapore? And another question was someone read an article about the Netherlands using greenhouses to grow food. Since land is such an issue, why doesn't the state explore the greenhouse idea? And so technology, I mean, what's out there, what's promising?
Vertical farming. In fact, I think last year Fred Lau had hosted a soilless ag conference, and there was a gentleman there. Maybe it was 3 years ago.
Tell me what
talked
vertical
about
farming is, though. What does that mean?
Indoor, in a warehouse.
Going up.
Going up.
Stacked.
Not
Stacking it, yep.
needing much land.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense in a place like Singapore or Hong Kong. It makes a lot of sense in some parts of the island.
He was doing it in Kaka'ako.
Yeah.
But I remember him telling a story where he had the capital to invest. There is investment because you're doing it indoors.
Right.
You need the lights and all the infrastructure. But he was making, energy is one of the big costs. He was making
Yes.
deliveries on a bicycle to cut down his costs, again, as a business. So I saw him at the Ag Conference last week, excuse me, and I asked him if he's profitable because I think he said it would take 5 years. And he said not yet, couple more years to become profitable. But now with Kaka'ako being developed, he needs to move because now that property that he's on is higher value, so he can't afford to be there. So again, understand farming is a business and, the challenges.
Utility costs. When we
Yeah.
pay 42 cents a kilowatt.
The energy, the energy
9
costs
cents
or
in the
vertical,
mainland. I can go vertical at 9 cents.
Yeah.
9 cents a kilowatt hour.
But not at 35.
With some grow lights, yeah.
But Mike can talk about
40 plus. And
greenhouse. Greenhouse technology.
We got involved in a greenhouse because of the bugs and the disease.
Yeah.
And so I look at the greenhouse as if it's a flu shot for the plants, where we can somewhat protect the environment with shade cloth and polyplastic and contain it. We can contain disease, because disease, if it goes rampant, it spreads through your whole farm. You're done. It only takes one time to wipe you out. And so we have 48 separate identified greenhouses. So if there's a problem in that greenhouse, we like quarantine that greenhouse. We close the doors and we take care of it. But it's isolated into the greenhouse. So greenhouse farming is I believe, the way of the future. A lot of outdoor farmers saying, wow, it doesn't rain in a greenhouse as another plus. So it can be storming outside and you can still farm.
But as you said, Mike, you have to deal with the heat. I mean, that's our
yeah.
enemy here in greenhouses. Is the
You
heat.
get heat, so you got to make sure you
they're
got right
great
ventilation.
Yeah.
So ventilation is important, and then the cost for the greenhouse.
So that was
The
gonna bring
cost
up
is
again.
the
capital.
biggest thing. The initial cost to get that greenhouse. In our operation, you're talking about 10, 12 grand to get
What
one of
are
us
the
in
more
operation.
promising technologies that are out there that you're looking ahead to that might help farmers in Hawaii?
Well, I know that because of food safety, I don't know if it's going to be affordable, but people are looking at technology from Japan, for sanitizing, they call the nano bubbles, things like that. And then also, the governor being a electrical engineer, together with our chief technology officer, we're in the second year of a hackathon. And so last year, these kids are coming up with these apps to help people locate their farmers markets. And then there's also apps coming out to help farmers with their irrigation.
Food safety.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because we have majority of our new farmers are immigrants. And English is their second language, but they all have a smartphone. And so that is a tool to get them on board with the latest, tools, especially with food safety.
So we're getting some ideas from our viewers for innovative things. I got two questions about people asking prisoners, training prisoners to work on the farms. I guess they mean parolees, people leaving prison.
I worked with.
As a former police officer?
Yeah, so I understand that question, and so when we first started our Farming for the Working Class, we had some parolees and on parole or probation now, and part of our program. We worked with Kulani Prison on helping them create one system. I think they're not completely up and running, but they're starting working there. A little more difficult at the actual prison, but it coincided with our ag park that when you're trying to rehabilitate these cons coming out, nobody's gonna hire them. But if you give them a community ag park and they get one parcel and they're working for themselves and generating their own income, that's a doable thing. So they're gonna learn that in the prison, when they come out, do we have a place for them to do that? We don't. And we're not talking about 10 acres. We're talking about 5,000 square feet, 2 greenhouses or
Well,
something.
like Kulani on the Big Island is got a huge piece of property.
Yeah, they're doing that right now.
Waiava
is also,
Waiava, they're farming.
They're doing that. But when they come out, what do they do?
Where do they go? Yeah.
So you're going to learn this farming trade, get into it, then you come out, you're going to work for somebody? These guys don't want to work for nobody. They want to work for themselves.
Because they may not be asked to work for somebody. because of their
Yeah, they're going to look at the record on the application and say, I don't think so. So creating community ag parks is really important.
It is a viable workforce, and it's great work that public safety is doing, developing these ag programs, learning trades, learning skills.
Nowhere to go though at the end. That's the problem.
idea. Okay, so another interesting, we talked a little bit about the economics of it, right? So a couple of questions about what government could do to maybe tilt the playing field a little bit. Can government guidelines provide incentives to grocers to sell locally grown produce to boost food production? More stores need to partner with farmers. Another one is, could the government be looking at a pricing schedule between locally produced versus imported goods? Dr. Grace, is that something that, messing with the economy is always risky, but
Interstate commerce
has
clause.
anybody done that?
Personal level, I'm in favor of it, right? But
Taxing
but
imports.
trade
part of it comes
imports,
down to legal restrictions you may or may not have. Another part comes down, frankly, to how you want to allocate resources. And it's not really the people at this table; it's the legislature. It's to some extent the governor, but in large part the legislature. And where do they want to put money? What loan programs or what sort of subsidy programs do they want to put in place? And those are the folks who can deal with the legal restrictions as well, if they feel they can and they choose to do so. So it's really good suggestions, but legally and financially, from the state standpoint, it becomes real complicated very fast.
See, that's what Brian keeps saying, is buy local, buy local, buy local. If people are willing to pay more, that would do a lot. How much difference would that make?
Yes.
Again, 10% is 300 million.
300 million in the
300
economy.
million in our economy. And, when you think about it, how much more really is. Well, I don't know if we'll ever really get true price parity with the imports, but it's close on a lot of products.
Very
And
close.
how much is that when you'll go to you go and get a plate lunch and you pay how much for that plate lunch, or you'll buy a soda from a soda machine that maybe it'll cost you $1.50. Just that little bit that you're going to change your behavior and buy more local will mean much more. Again, the farmer needs to make money. The farmer's selling their products, making money is going to allow them to possibly grow their operations. And by growing their operations or incentivize new farmers, we want to make farming sexy. For the next generation, or we're not going to have. Phyllis is right. I think it's 60.4, right, is the average age of the farmer. We're at 2% unemployment right now. Farming is not a occupation that people are looking for when
But when you get back to
such
the
low unemployment.
economies of it, right? Has anybody looked into how much more people are willing to pay for a local product, or does the local product have to be better and give you the value? Because you make these tomatoes, they call wow tomatoes. Are people paying more for your tomatoes than they're paying for others' tomatoes?
I think it's comparable. But I think the difference is, especially in our communities where we live and where my children live, who actually market them, the community wants to support the local farmer. So my community supports our farm because they want us to buy local.
Yeah.
So what is local? So if we created like these community parks, that community will buy from that community. They will buy from their people. That's a massive increase.
A portion
neighbor.
there's a demographics where it's shown that the longer your residency, the more loyal you are, and the more you're supportive of the farmers.
Yeah.
You're paying value for fresher, but you're also paying because you want to support your community, your neighbor.
That's the model of our farmers markets. It wasn't for the off grades or the Bs. It was so the farmer could sell direct,
wholesalers,
get a higher price selling direct. But also that interaction between the farmer and the consumer.
They know where their food comes from, who's growing their
food. So I think there's a big demand.
that higher price. So you get the farmer getting his price and then the store getting their price. So you go to the farmer's market and you get a little higher price, but it's still less than the market price.
Yeah. Hey, we've actually run out of time. It was a great show. Really quickly moving. And I want to thank all of our audience for joining us tonight. And we thank our guests, Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser from the Hawaii State Department of Agriculture, Brian Miyamoto with the Hawaii Farm Bureau Federation, Dr. Kenneth Grace from the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I always thought we should find a way to shorten that name.
CTAR.
CTAR, right? You guys get it. And local farmer Michael Hodson from Waimea on Hawaii Island. Next week on Insights, as we approach the September 17th premiere of Ken Burns' documentary film series, The Vietnam War, we will look back on what it was like in Hawaii during this tumultuous era. Were we as passionately divided as the rest of the country? How did we treat our local veterans when they came home? After decades of avoiding the subject, are we ready to talk about Vietnam? Our guests will have a great deal to share with you, and we'll hear from former Senator Daniel Akaka. We hope you'll join us right here next week, and we'll leave you tonight with a Vietnam War story from one of Hawaii's own. I'm Daryl Huff for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Ahui ho.
Retired Marine Ron Shaddell is the kind of guy who will give you a straight answer about Vietnam, Operation Desert Storm, and a woman who saved his life. Just don't ask him about his rank.
That's one of the things that I have a hard time with, because why do you, we're all veterans. Why do you have to differentiate? To me, here we go again. We had enough problems with rank. We're on active duty. Got in Vietnam in 1966. I think it was in June of 1966. People ask me, why'd you go? It wasn't a war. Well, I was being shot at, and I was doing, it was a war. As a Marine, I felt it was my duty to do it. I lost, Willie Kekahuna. When I got hit the last time, he came in NSA Da Nang and saw me. And I said, I said, nope. I said, brother, you pushing your luck, because he was there early. This was like his second time over there. And he was there early in the early 60s. Hawaiian, you pushing your luck. But you maki, I'll put a red carnation on your grave.
Ron came home in 1968, right after the Tet Offensive. Years later, he re-enlisted and deployed out of Kaneohe for Operation Desert Storm. But Ron fought another war with his own demons.
And here I am, man. I've got PTSD to the max, Who's the rock? My wife. So that's why I tell people, I say, you know what? We may be macho, we may be physically strong, but you'll never match the emotional strength of a good woman. Never. And I owe my health and my life to my wife. Whew. Strong lady. You can take the tit out of Waianae, but you can't take the Waianae out of the tit.